What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the shop. As you can see here today, I'm getting down to business. I've got my anti-communist glasses on already because I'm seeing some crazy Orwellian, authoritarian, tyrannical stuff, just like always. And a few days ago, Project Veritas leaked one of the most important memos I've seen in a very long time. Let's go back in time a little bit to the last time I've seen something like this. It was under Bill Clinton and Janet Reno, and it was right before the build-up to Waco, Ruby Ridge, Tim McVeigh's Oklahoma City bombing, all these other things that happened, and the way the government handled it were on a list back then. So if you go back into the Janet Reno's administration back then, if you said like you supported Ron Paul or the Tea Party or anything like that, it may have been pre-Tea Party, but there were other things. Like if you talked about openly about the Constitution, you would get put on this FBI list. And I found that very alarming back then. But I don't think it was heavily enforced back then. They probably didn't have the manpower to go check everyone that was talking about the Constitution. So, and that was way back in the 90s. So yeah, I know that was before the Tea Party movement came along. But then later on, during the Obama administration, when the Tea Party movement came along, and I can't remember who it was, but someone had another list. It may have been the FBI. That if you were in the Tea Party or you had, you know, the Gadsden flag and other things like that. So some of these items we've seen before. We've seen the FBI do this before. But I'm calling tyranny. This is oppression. This is a way to oppress people that they won't be able to express themselves anymore. And if you show these sorts of symbols on your social media platforms, I mean, get ready for a knock on the door, or at very least, get ready for someone to be tapping into your computer traffic to see where you're going and what you're looking at and try to do a psychological evaluation based on the things that you view or maybe even your keystrokes. Who knows how far it goes. So be very careful out there, guys. But this list is mind-blowing. And again, it's just unbelievable to me that Project Veritas, especially as many things as they've opened up wide open, are still able to bust these stories open, but they've leaked this document that you should be paying attention to. So what is it? It's the FBI Militia Violent Extremism list of symbols. And we're going to try to go through these pretty fast so the video is not too long. But the first symbol here on the list is Boogaloo. So that's a reference from a movie, and apparently there was a movie. I don't know what the name of it was. Let me know if you know the name of it down in the comments. I'd like to watch it. Electric Boogaloo is used by some MVEs to refer to a violent uprising or a second civil war. So interesting that the left is able to talk about civil war openly on all of their platforms and they're not being investigated. But if these guys, you know, jokingly say, oh, it's Boogaloo or whatever, then they're going to get a knock on the door and probably a thorough investigation and have their life turned upside down. And I heard some snarky judge, earlier liberal judge, say, oh, well, if you've got nothing to hide, then there's nothing to be worried about. You shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't be too worried about this if you're not doing anything wrong. No. This is thought crime. This is, you know, posting an image. Maybe you're not even in a militia and you post an image on your Facebook or something that gets you watched and put on a list. Just unbelievable. So the next one here is the Punisher skull and variations. So apparently there's several variations of the Punisher skull, but they claim it's used by 3%ers and also the phrase Malone Labe. We'll get more into that a little later. 2A, so Second Amendment. If you've got a 2A website, or maybe you've got 2A, I'm pro 2A in your Facebook feed or whatever, on your little thumbnail on YouTube, whatever, or if you ever even talk about it in the comments, they say that MVEs justify their existence with the Second Amendment due to the mention, they say, of a well-regulated militia and the right to bear arms. It didn't just mention it, it said it. It said it shall not be infringed. So that probably right there, me making a statement like that probably gets me added higher up on their list. They probably got some, you know, some chart where if you say a certain amount of things and you do certain amounts of activities online, because they're spying on everything you do, whether that be on your cell phone or on your laptop or on your home computer, they're spying on you. Edward Snowden proved that. Next up here, and I have never heard this one before, so this is kind of interesting. An electrical resistance symbol. And that's a way to identify as a resistor. So I'm guessing that's probably more like engineers and, you know, electronics nerds and stuff like that. They have figured out that they can use the electrical resistance symbol, and it basically says, I am a resistor. So if you've got that, if you've got a patch on your motorcycle jacket or something like that, oh boy, look out. Because when you go into town or into the city where everything is under 24-hour surveillance, they're going to get a glimpse of that on one of their cameras and be like, oh my God, we've got a potential domestic terrorist here. We better drop everything and go investigate this guy, turn his life upside down, make his life a living hell. Yeah, they're using bureaucracy and lawfare to attack people. I've said before in videos, there are so many laws. The laws have become so voluminous that everyone in this country is guilty of something, whether you know it or not. Now these cronies, these people, are trying to weaponize it against their political enemies. That should scare you, shake you to the core. The Republicans should never do that. No one should ever do this. But the Democrats, when they get control, they go after their political enemies. If you don't believe me, look back at what Obama did to anyone that was conservative that had a 501c3 organization set up with the government. He had the IRS go after him, cancel their 501c3s. He gave them hell. He was picking and choosing winners and losers back then. And he didn't want anybody to have an equal playing field or equal rights, equal protection under the law, any of that stuff. It's all out the window when Democrats and tyrants take control. So next up here is anarcho-capitalism. These MVEs advocate the state be eliminated or minimized, and that the private services should be provided by private sectors in a free market. I mean, that doesn't sound unreasonable to me. You want free market capitalism, not all this government control. You want a smaller government. I mean, duh, that's what we're supposed to have. And we're not even allowed to talk about that? Is that what they're saying? If you mention this sort of stuff on a YouTube video or anything like that, you're going to get flagged? It's what it sounds like to me. Warrior culture. So anything with like military themes, whether that be historical or contemporary. Think of like Spartan helmets and things like that, and Valhalla and different sayings and phrases like that. If you're posting those things, you're going to be put on this watch list. I guarantee you. This stuff doesn't end well. This is straight out of 1984. Unfreaking believable that we're even having to have this conversation. But you don't have a democratic republic when one side is not allowed to think the way that they want to think. And most of this stuff goes back to historical references. Isn't that interesting? They're trying to ban and label history, our Constitution, as a hateful document, our Bill of Rights as a hateful document. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Here's the next one. Malone labe. Of course, that's a Greek phrase, and it means come and take it, or come and take them. Unfreaking believable. Unbelievable that we're even having to have this conversation. Last one here on the first part of this list is the black flag. And that indicates no quarter shall be given. And they said that that's any variation of the American flag that's been blacked out. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I've got a blacked out American flag on my hat here. And it's not because I'm saying no quarter. It's because my daughter's boyfriend worked for a company and gave me this hat. And I happen to like the hat because it's got an American flag on it. Does that make me a terrorist? In their eyes, it's worth investigating and turning my life upside down and whatever, just causing all kinds of problems. And you know how that is. For one thing, just the feeling of being investigated by your own government, should give you the heebie-jeebies. Also, by the way, off topic, I don't have it listed here, but since they passed their new Inflationary Reduction Act, as they're calling it, although it will only add to inflation, they're adding like 87,000 new IRS members to come and do what? Do what? Turn your life upside down. Make your life a living hell, especially if you've ever said anything negative about the Democrats or their agenda or the New World Order or Biden and his feebleness or anything like that. They are weaponizing the bureaucracies, guys. This is unbelievable. So these are commonly referenced historical images or quotes. So this last part really should strike home to you. These things are common symbols. The first one here is the Gadsden flag. I live in a place where it's not uncommon for me to be driving down the road and see Gadsden flags. In fact, I'll admit it right here. I have flown the Gadsden flag several times, more so back during the Obama years because I was more worried about the direction of the country back then, and I wore my Gadsden flag out because I flew it so much back then. So I would be flying it now, except for it's all torn to shreds, and I need to get a new one. But if you do fly one, they're going to put you on this list. The Gadsden flag is a historical American symbol, and it represents gun rights and limited government. But these things are bad in the eyes of an authoritarian that wants to seize control and take over and undo your rights, your God-given rights. Don't forget that. The next one here is Revolutionary War imagery. So I've got a painting that I really like. It's all these guys, militiamen probably, standing there, and someone painted a great picture capturing all the different faces of these guys and what they might have been thinking when they were getting ready to go to battle with the British for the first time. And some of them are standing there armed like they're ready to go. You can't hold them back, Others are like, you can tell they're scared to death. And according to this, sharing that image and doing stuff like that and having it as my background anywhere or having it listed on one of my Facebook pictures or something like that will get me thrown on their list or a Gadsden flag. Just unfreaking believable. So any Revolutionary War imagery, an example might be a militiaman during the Revolutionary War. Next up is the Liberty Tree. If you don't know, it was a famous elm tree in Boston. And in 1765, Boston staged the first act of defiance against the British government at the tree. So it's a very important tree and it's a very important symbol. But if you have this symbol, you're going to be put on the FBI's domestic terrorist militia bullshit watch list. Un-American commie bullshit. That's what this is. Next up here, Betsy Ross flag. So it's a Revolutionary War image that harkens back to the 13 colonies and calls for revolution. So if you've got a Betsy Ross flag and you love American history and, whatever, you just like the look of the flag and it reminds you of the history of the 13 colonies and you've got that on your Facebook or whatever, they're going to be watching you. Unfreaking believable. This is the ministry of truth from Orwell's 1984 being applied to supposedly the land of the free, the home of the brave. Although I'm not seeing a whole lot of bravery out there. There are a few people, and then they get smacked down. Like Alex Jones, I would consider him a pretty brave, cutting edge journalist trying to do the best he can to uncover the truth after sorting through the veil of lies. See, the media is never held accountable. The mainstream media, they're never held accountable to their veil of lies. When they lie about something, whatever, they'll bury it in the back page and say, oh, oops, sorry, and no one will ever see that. But when someone like Alex Jones gets up there, or others, there's lots of other people that are brave and speaking truth to authority, which it's a dangerous thing right now. This list proves it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about here with you guys is the definition of tyranny. What is it? Well, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it's oppressive power, especially oppressive power exerted by the government. And Thomas Jefferson had a great quote. It says, "Every form of tyranny over the minds of man." And let me ask you this, after I've read through this list here and talked to you about the things that they're doing with using the bureaucracies and the Justice Department, weaponizing against their political enemies, do we have a tyranny over our minds right now, the minds of man? Are the Bidens and people around him, because we all know he's not pulling the strings, he's not calling the shots, somebody else is pulling his strings, are they marching us closer and closer towards tyranny every day? I think so, guys. This proves it. Their FBI is out of control. I'm calling for abolishing the FBI and the Fed while we're at it, and the IRS, and lots of other stuff. So I'm sure that'll get me thrown on a list as well. Let me know how many lists you guys are on down in the comments, and are you worried about it? When they come knocking on your door, do you know your constitutional rights well enough to be able to defend yourself? If not, I highly suggest you go out and get yourself a pocket constitution and really, really study up on it and know your rights. They're not allowed to come and violate your home, your person, your papers, or your effects without a warrant. So make sure you guys know all that stuff and know your rights. And, don't give them any information on yourself that could be used against you. You also have the right to remain silent if you're being placed under arrest. So you might want to exercise that right until you have an attorney present that can help you stay out of the sticky traps that they have set all around. We're in real trouble, guys. Real trouble. Let me know what you guys are thinking about down in the comments. If this bothers you or if it's just another thing, no sweat off your back, we shouldn't be worried about it. Let me know what you think. I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. We'll see you next time.